What's up, guys? It is Wednesday, August the 28th, 2019. Wednesday? What the hell are we doing here? Back again. We got four more matchups to go over from last week. My apologies for this being extra day delayed. That one's on me. My job held me over, and I really couldn't do this kind of show on like 2 hours of sleep. So here I am on about 5 hours of sleep. And with me, once again, my co-host, Benjamin Aloysius Nisman. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great, Joe. Good to be back. Got to thank Mike Haber for coming off the bench and doing a tremendous job. Number one in the standings, number one in my heart as well, because just some of the insight he was able to throw in there was terrific. I think you guys did a great job together, and I can't wait to talk about more of it. Joe, you are a multi-time, multi-decorated, reigning, defending, formerly and currently known as Mickey Dragon, Joe Schubert. Start us off, buddy.
Thank you, buddy. The thing I want to get to right away here, Mike Haber and I did have a discussion about the argument that we had last week referencing quality starts versus complete games. Did you listen to it?
I did. I had a chance to listen to it. So,
yeah.
Where do you want to start? Because
I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to give you the floor to respond to everything Mike and I had to talk about, and I'll chime in where you see appropriate.
Okay. Great. Yeah, this will be a very tame let's throw questions at each other and try to see where we both are coming from. Because
sure.
If it gets out of hand just because it authentically does, like last week, terrific. But otherwise, we're going to try to keep it civilized and tame here.
Of course.
And I will say that our conversation kind of stemmed from something else. It wasn't really this versus this. So when I was listening to what you and Mike had to say, it almost seemed like that's how you geared it, that it was quality starts versus complete games. And that's not really where my head was at. I think I don't think they should necessarily be in the same sense. They're not compared. It's what is necessary for the league. What makes the league better? And I really, really appreciated a lot of what you guys had to say. That a throwaway category might not be necessary in our kind of competitive, the way that we play the game. I understand where your heads are at. At the same time, and this is something that wasn't brought up, I'm sure this is something that Mike knows, but here's where I stand on it, man. Mike and I played in the 2012 finals, and James Shields threw a complete game. You know that we ended on a 10-10 tie, so that complete game was the difference when you look at it. Not to mention the innings that he pitched, and we know he ended up winning by an inning pitched also, but let's just for argument's sake, a complete game was the reason it happened. I didn't at the end of the day think that's crap, I can't believe that's how he won it. He beat me because that guy threw a good game. I believe it was 2017 actually. Donato Santangelo faced Uncle Barry in the first round of the playoffs, and Uncle Barry won by one, a complete game shutout by Corey Kluber. And I don't think Donato, as far as I remember, Donato said, yeah, that's how he beat me, those are the stats. It was never that's crap, and I still don't think that way. However, at the same time, I could see it on that other side. I can certainly see, if someone gets to the playoffs by the amount of stats of complete games, if the complete games weren't there, then they wouldn't have gone to the playoffs. I can see the gripe. I see where you're coming from in that aspect. What else? The nature of it being an exciting stat is where my thought process was. You get excited when you see your guy towing the rubber in the ninth inning, and he's got a chance to do this. Because if it's not there, then it's just another inning, maybe another strikeout, and lowers your ERA and lowers your WHIP for that inning. If we felt like that's enough, and we don't need the complete game on top of it when a guy throws an amazing start, then I can understand. it's a pull the lever and 3 cherries come out when you start that guy. That's really all it was to me, And I understand that in this day and age, it's happening much more rarely than when I put it into our league in 2003. So that's the reason why shutouts wasn't there. I kind of felt like if someone throws a complete game shutout, it is really hard for the opponent to come back. Especially hard, and that's why I said, okay, let's at least cut one of them. The range shoring complete games is something that I anticipated. I didn't necessarily foresee it becoming the difference maker. I think at the end of the year, when we see who gets in the playoffs, we'll determine whether those kinds of things made a difference and made a difference in the standings or whatever. Maybe not. Either way, I guess that's something for a different day. Let's talk about quality starts then, because this is something that has been brought to the table many times. I've definitely considered it, Joe. For me, it just seems like it's too much overlap on a stat that you can reach and get. And when we're having a problem right now, and it is a problem, you don't see it as a problem, Joe, because you're always the first person to get those pictures, but other people that are trying are seeing that as an issue. My uncle spoke to me this week. He even said, I think the fact that Joe can pick up all these starters and then not even play them is kind of rough, and I can definitely see the point. We have an issue of too much streaming of starting pitchers. I know you don't see it as an issue because you're always the one getting them, but it is an issue, man. So it's about how do we fix that issue? If we add another streaming type of stat, and Joe, I was actually getting extremely frustrated until you guys started talking. You started defending my argument a little bit and saying, I realize that's another stream. We can stream for strikeouts, we can stream for innings, we can stream for wins, and you can do this now. But then you kind of got off of that subject and went back, and that's a big thing. I mean, it's not something that we should minimize. The fact that you can stream for these things. If you can stream on something, another thing on top of it, it's just going to diminish other stats. Now, a quality start is probably something that proves a pitcher's skill more than a win, because a guy can pitch like crap and still get a win. Now, a quality start, you have to throw 6 innings. You can go 3 earned. Now, a 3 earned, do you know what 6 and 3 earned is?
It's a quality start.
It's a quality start, I'm saying. Do you know the ERA?
Oh, yeah, it's a 4.50.
Right. So, is a 4.50 that good? Not really.
Not really.
It's okay. It's okay. A 6 and 2, 6 innings, 2 earned. That's 2.6. No, excuse me. It's a 3.
It's a 3 ERA. It's a 3 ERA.
It's a 3.65. It's not even a sub 35, right? But it's still good. I mean, that's good.
Benji,
it's still,
2 earned runs over 6 innings is a 3 ERA. That's an inning. That's a 3. That's an earned run every 3 innings. There's 9 innings in the game. It's a 3 ERA.
Oh yeah, it would be 3. Okay, so it's a 3 ERA. So that's good. We talked about how quality starts is something that would happen more regularly than wins. That's a big deal, man. That's just that doesn't for the league that we're in. That's not going to help us. I really don't think it will. It's not just it's a cool stat. It's something fun that we can go and reach and get. I just don't. I think it's overlapping. I think it's overlapping in the sense that we'll have another thing that we can just go and pick up and use moves on. And it's pitchers. Again, it's pitchers. Starting pitchers specifically. The one thing that there's already the most scarce amount of. So that's where my thought process is. If I was ever going to do any kind of stat for pitching right now that would maybe fix this problem, it'd be something like on-base percentage.
On-base percentage,
Now, is it an overlap with whip? Extremely. It's almost the same thing as whip. But at least it restricts a guy from playing a guy. It withholds a guy and say, why am I going to go and reach into this free agency? Because I'm already, I could hurt my on-base percentage as well as my ERA and my WHIP. So it wouldn't be a positive stat, something that if you can go and just play it, you get, If anything, I want it to be a risk if you do it. But the whole discussion started in thinking that we might be able to fix the issue just by lowering the moves. It's just a matter of how many is the appropriate amount. So I already know that we're going down to 12. It's just a matter of whether we should go to 11. Maybe I add this on-base percentage stat as well as moving it down to 12. I'm not exactly sure, and I think that we have to probably just feel out for 1 year because the format's going to change, Joe. I'm going up to 42 innings. I'm going to add a relief pitcher because the MLB is going to 26-man roster, and I have to assume that I don't know how you feel, but I feel like at least half the baseball teams, maybe even 2/3 of them, will make that extra roster spot a pitcher most of the time. I think they would.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not going to also add the DH in the NL, then yeah, you have to assume that the vast majority of those teams are just going to carry another reliever.
Right. So if there's going to be more pitchers in our free agency pool as a result of that, then I don't think we run into it getting too scarce in free agency if what we do is a relief pitcher. So I'll do that, and then I also wanted to switch one of our SPs and make it just a P, because there are guys like Chance Adams that people never got to see because he was only his eligibility was just a P. It wasn't an RP or an SP.
Yeah.
So if
we ran into that.
Burn a move on Chance Adams, that ends up hurting them that week. I want them to be able to burn a move on certain pitchers. I feel like every single player that plays baseball or minor league baseball should be available in our league.
Yeah,
so,
and that I agree with, and that's a strong move on your part to give us that flexibility to find everybody possible. Another good example is the Texas Rangers starter Colby Allard, who just got SP eligibility after his third start. So nobody could stream him until this week.
Okay, so yeah, this was the main reason why I wanted to do it. But not to mention, it's also another option. Like you said, it gives options. Another option that it gives us is that can be a relief pitcher if we want. So it's not always the relievers that also have that dual eligibility with the SP, that now someone can actually have 7 relievers every day. That might make it easier to go close to 42. It's just how I'm really not sure how this 3-batter rule affects us next year. So that's where I'm hoping that the happy number is 42, that you have 7 relievers automatically as opposed to 5. And I'm just hoping that that's a good number that's kind of equal to 37, which has been a good number for us this year.
Yeah, it's been a very good number, and everybody's made it every single week, so credit to everybody in the league. We didn't have that last year.
Right. So again, the discussion last week came from the concern that I have that everybody is trying to get a pitcher at a certain time, typically on Sunday, and it felt like it's a monopoly. And I want to know how I can fix that issue, and I'm trying to figure out how to still be able to have the strategy of being able to stream starting pitchers, because you should still be entitled to have that availability to you whenever you want it. But at the same time, make sure that everyone has that same availability. And it just seems like lately, towards the end of the season, where more teams are desperate, and you're one of these teams just trying to either make the playoffs or get into the number 2 spot wherever you end up, you need to do everything you can, and you're going to use every damn move, and most of the time, Joe, you're going to use it on starting pitchers. So how is that rectified? Well, if I limit your moves, then you're going to have to make a decision either on doing this earlier in the week or at the end of the week, but you'll be a little bit more restricted, I think, with your moves. So again, I'm thinking of it as a commissioner standpoint and trying to think, how do we maintain the balance? Lately, it just seems like there's a little bit of an unbalance because you're able to at 12 o'clock your time, 3 a.m. everybody else's time, take advantage of that. That's not your fault. It's not against the rules. It's just that it really just makes it more challenging. You can prepare ahead of time. You can prepare 2 days ahead, sure, but you never know until the day of, like, how much everybody has and what you need until Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And then you know how many innings you need. You know how many strikeouts. But if there's no availability anymore because you at 3:01 got everybody, it just. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I'll freely admit my 2014 championship. That's how I won it, because on Sunday of that matchup, I was ahead on innings and wins and strikeouts, and I just said, you know what? There's like 6 dudes on the waiver wire that are probable starters. I'm grabbing them all, because we didn't have an innings,
Right.
we didn't have a moves limit at that point.
No.
So I grabbed them all. Like, what else am I going to do with all of the pitchers on my roster after the last day of the season?
Right.
There was no reason not to. And
Yeah.
that's
This is a major issue, man. I mean, it's different. It was different then because you had to make the moves the day before, and you can't really. And things change. 24 hours after. But
Sure.
But you're right. Even then, we should have had a moves limit. But it was just such a different game. So
Yeah.
we can only go forward. We can only try to fix like what we currently see as an issue and how to make everything balanced. It just seems like lately there's been a little bit less balance than usual. And again, it's part of the rules. It's nothing that you're doing that's illegal. It's just something that we might need to alter just to fix for next year. That's all.
Okay. As a couple of suggestions, and these are not anything I put any thought into, just reacting to what you've said here. You
Okay,
brought up.
and I want you to touch on all of it, including quality starts. So
Yes.
we can get through it and
It
try
will.
to see
It
where
will.
we're both coming from.
In fact, that's where I was going to start. So quality starts. It's much more indicative of a player's skill, and to stream it, of a manager's foresight of the matchup, ballpark, lineup that he's facing. All of those things go into a decision to stream a guy. So to get to as you put it, pull the lever and get 3 cherries on a complete game, or put that much thought into a stream to get.
Okay, let's not do this versus this again, because they're 2 different things. Just try to forget. Like, let's leave complete games out of it, because that's a whole different thing.
Okay. There is so much more skill in trying to go after quality starts than there is other statistics, right? You can luck into a win. You can luck into a strikeout even. But to get 6 innings and not give up 3 runs, there's not a whole lot of luck there. That pitcher had a good matchup. You saw it. The ballpark was good. The lineup was something that he could navigate, and you get that stat. So
Is your managing of how you stream a quality start going to be any different than how you stream a guy for a win?
probably not.
Okay.
Probably not, because you're going.
I mean, if we're going to add,
But-
we might as well subtract wins.
But the thing about and that was kind of where I was going to be going with this. But the thing about wins is that you also have to take into account the pitcher you're streaming's offense. So there is something else to be said about that. To try and go and get a quality start, I don't care what the other offense is going to do.
Right, but I think that is part of the skill. For me, it's just like, oh, this guy is going to pitch a good game regardless of what his team does. But that's not generally baseball. I mean, that's why wins and losses are kind of cool. And even at this day and age, I realize maybe I'm kind of a dinosaur in that way, because that doesn't necessarily show the pitcher's skill as much as a quality start.
Right.
Like a quality start, if I'm an agent, I'm probably going to back up my pitcher's quality starts versus his win-loss record, right?
Certainly.
Because I'm trying to sell him to a team and saying, like, look, who cares that he lost 16 games. He was on a bad team. Look how many quality starts he had.
Mm-hmm.
I understand your point, but I don't necessarily think like the skill of doing that, to picking them, is necessary for our league. I think the wins-loss thing is cooler for us because you try to get the win, you hope, because but then your bullpen screws you, or the other team's pitcher just is like a little bit better, even though you had Scherzer and he went 7 and he only gave up 1 run. The other guy gave up 0 runs, so therefore you got the loss.
Mm-hmm.
That's baseball.
Yeah.
That's just baseball. The wins and losses thing, based on the pitch, based on the opponent, and based on the offense, the production. The run support. Thank you.
Right.
And that's part of it as well. So, to me, I realize that a pitcher's skill is shown more by quality starts. I just don't think that means that it's a good thing for our league. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I think the question comes down to, and again, this is so much more a philosophical, how does one play fantasy baseball question.
Right.
I think what it boils down to is this league's philosophy that you are trying to be a baseball manager, like an MLB manager day to day, or are you trying to be the best fantasy baseball manager, right? Because there's all these analytics and all these inside stats and sabermetric stats that somebody like me, I love. I get deep into, XFIP and WOBA and shit like that. Like, I'm all over that. And when I see a stat like quality starts, something that can improve, in my eyes, where there is a stat that's a bit lucky in a league this deep, this competitive, I see that as a way to go, oh, okay, we can use that stat, add another tick to the ticker that actually to the matchup that, and again, I'm going back to comparing complete games and quality starts again, but that's because, and again, but it's because I look at complete games and I go, you can luck into that.
Just imagine they're not there, though. Just imagine we don't even have complete games. Because I can see a league next year where we just don't have that stat. I can see that. I'm trying to talk about a possible issue you might be raising if you add quality starts. Something that you might not see, Joe, because you typically never have the issue of streaming starting pitchers.
Sure.
Other people do.
Okay. That's what I wanted to get to. The other idea that I had off of this conversation, it sort of just came to me. Do you think that this league would be feasible, rather than having an innings limit, having a starts limit?
That's an interesting question, and it's certainly not something that I've even thought about or considered. So that's something that I'd have to look at and really have to do the math on. It's not something I could really evaluate right now, but that's something to look at.
Yeah, sure. I know James McCloskey and I share a team on ESPN that we play in a work league, and we're doing okay, but that's another story for another time. But what we've run into, and what I ran into early in the season, was, oh yeah, I'm going to go and grab, a starting, I'm going to go grab a starter. I'm going to go grab a starter. I'm going to go grab a starter day after day after day like I do. Well, all of a sudden, I hit my 8 starts limit at Wednesday. Because you stack up a whole bunch of starters, and oh shit, I didn't know that this league had a starts limit. Now, rather than doing 42 innings, what if you did 7 starts? That's a start a day.
Yeah, but then I guess I run into the problem with innings pitched being a stat, because then it's just, there's nothing that you can stream for at all now. I don't have a problem with streaming. I don't want you to think that. It's just that I think that there still needs to be availability and pitching probables for other teams when they need it, and there's more than just a group like 1 or 2 teams that needs to try to win innings pitched or needs to try to win strikeouts on Sunday.
I think the starts limit might be the way to go here, because if
you realize, though, then certain stats might have to disappear in our, like.
And I think innings pitched is a good one if you go that route, right? I'm not saying that you do away with it and you don't go this route, but it's something to look into on, okay, if I limit 7 starts for every team, then you're mitigating the issue of, oh, well, by Sunday, they're not going to, somebody, because at the end of the day, some of us carry 7 starters.
Right.
And if you like those 7 guys
and whatnot, and then we also run into the problem of openers.
Exactly.
Count as a start.
Exactly. It would count as a start. It absolutely would. And you could go, well, that kind of sucks. Yeah, but all your relievers are only going 1 inning, or an inning and 2/3.
Don't you feel like the inning minimum has worked for us, though?
Mm-hmm. I think it has. I mean, I'm glad nobody missed it this year, unlike last year.
Right.
Right. But I think having a starts cap lets us be a little bit more creative, right?
Sure.
Now, I'm not suggesting that you take away the innings minimum. I just think you're capable of saying, okay, you can only start 7 starters in a week. You can leave the innings minimum a bit lower that way. Rather than bumping it to 42, you can lower it back down and go, okay, yeah, you only have to get 27 innings in a week, but you can only start 7 starters in a week.
See, I can see a big problem happening there, man.
Okay.
27. So then, I mean,
then you can stream. Then you
get
can
an awesome ERA with 27, and then be chilling by Wednesday, and not have to start another guy for the rest of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that being an issue.
Sure, but then you're going to end up losing strikeouts. You're going to end up losing innings pitched. You're probably going to end up losing wins. So.
Yeah, but that's only 3, Joe.
And relief appearances.
Because I'm going to win. You name 3. I'll win losses. I'll win home runs. I'll win walks. I'll win ERA. I'll win WHIP.
So that's 5.
So that's a fine sacrifice for me. Like, have fun with your innings, your strikeouts, and maybe your wins.
My innings, my strikeouts, my wins, my relief appearances. That's 4. If you're not streaming, if you're not playing any pitchers, then I'm probably going to go grab relief appearances.
You said starts. You didn't say.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So so maybe I'll throw in a reliever or whatever. So I end up at like 30, 32 innings, whatever it ends up being. Maybe it ends up being 37. But there's basically a big difference in the risk that you take. Streaming relievers versus streaming a starting pitcher.
Right.
I'm just saying, there's a reason why the minimum had to go up, and it was because there were certain people, some aren't in this league anymore, that would just try to inch their way to 27 innings and be good by Wednesday or Thursday, and then that's it. They're going to win most of the pitching categories as a result. So I still kind of saw the issue happening this year. That's why I was like, even a conversation I had with Bobby, and he's like, God, this guy only needs 2 more for his minimum. It's Wednesday, and his ERA is 1.59 or whatever it was. And I was like, yeah, like, do you feel like that the inning is, like, minimum is low enough? And he's like, well, it's hard to say, because some days it's not like that, and you're trying to clamor for 15 innings during, the last 2 days somehow. So it really is contingent on the matchup and how you're playing against the guy throughout the 7 days. But at the end of the day, by the 7th day, it's always been a thing for our league that let's look at who's going to be the probable starters on Sunday. I mean, we have to do it for many years on Saturday because we had a plan and leave our days the moves the day before. But now it's always looking on Sunday, seeing who's left, and who's ever the first to be there is going to have that first crack at it. And I love innings pitched, and I love strikeouts, and I like wins, and I like that there's the ability to stream from. And I always felt that even when I was in my teens, man, when I was doing this, and I set up the league for when I was 19 years old, I said I don't want there to be too many opportunities for me to just go and get whoever I want, because there needs to be a risk in it as well. And that's why ERA, WHIP, home runs, walks, that's why those stats were important.
Absolutely.
Because there needed to be some risk in order, like, that's why we're benching pitchers during the week sometimes, you know? And sometimes it burns you, sometimes it you know, if the guy throws 7 great innings and you wish you could have had him, you go and get it some other time during the week. You know, that's why you have your moves, to go and pick up that start later on in the week and try to make up for that miss that you had. But I want to know that everyone has that ability to get somebody on Sunday. And I see what you're saying with this maximum starts idea, but I do think we open up a can of worms by doing that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, anything you alter is going to have its effect and its ability to be exploited. You know, if you lower the innings, obviously we're going to see a whole lot more relievers and SP eligible guys, much the same way our former member Jay Ferraro did one year. You know, we're gonna
Yes.
if you up the innings, then you're just gonna see guys like me continue to stream pitchers and go get them at midnight on my time.
No doubt, Joe, but there's only so many times you can do that, though. I mean,
Yeah, you have to lower the number of moves I have. Agreed. Agreed.
This is my point. This is just my point.
Yeah.
It's
Go ahead.
now now let's talk about that for a minute. What does lowering the amount of ads do? And I know for a fact that a lot of guys don't even go past 10 for a week. And that's even later on in the season. It starts to happen a little bit more. Now, I myself have wished that I had another move, like last week. And we'll get into that when we get into my matchup.
Sure.
But there are moments where, if I only had a 14th move. But I might feel that way. You might feel that way. But I feel like you and I might be the minority. Maybe a couple more. Frank, maybe Jimmy, even though there's times when he doesn't use them. But either way, most teams are not using a ton of moves. So, therefore, I don't know how necessary they are. Now, there are certain times, like a 10-day week, it's the first week of the season, and right after the All-Star break, there's longer weeks where it certainly helps to have those, you know, more moves than not, because there might be days where your opponent has a ton of guys that have games, and you only have one, like you did on Monday, Joe.
Yeah.
Monday you only had one guy.
And that's where lowering
in general,
that's where for me lowering the number of moves is going to affect.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's
dangerous.
where it's where it's going to affect, because I'm like, I know I'm going to have to stream a bunch of guys hypothetically. I know that I'm going to need these moves later this week. I'm going to sacrifice Monday.
But then that's your decision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that when I was talking to Jason Ashby and Andy about this exact thing, and they were trying to defend how they can make an argument that you could go with less than 10 moves. And I said, yeah, but what about these times where I have only one guy with a game and my opponent has 7 or 8? And they say, you know what? That's part of the grind. Use 2 or 3 or whatever, and then move on to the next day.
Yeah.
And I see the point there. I really do. We talked about this on many shows, how you can use certain moves on Sunday to prepare for Monday. This is kind of an example. You know, I think that's where the argument is. That the fact of the matter is, you could make a ton of moves on Monday to fill your lineup and go 0 for 12 with those moves and still have moves left over to pick up your starting pitchers on Sunday.
Yeah, it's totally an option.
I don't know. I definitely know 12 will work. I'm going to have to see how this playoff is, because I always wanted to keep that number uniform, that I don't want to change it for the playoffs. You and I both know that more guys start to sit during the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
For our playoffs, rather. Because
of September call-ups, yeah.
Right, exactly. So I was always thinking, you know, let's make sure the moves aren't that low, because I want teams to be able to fill up a roster, you know, if they want to. And I'm hoping that when we lock other teams up, it makes only those free agents now available to 6 teams.
Right, so and that's going to mitigate
and
your...
the following week, it's only 4 teams, because I'm going to lock the 2 teams that lost from the first week of the playoff. Uncle Barry suggested to shorten our regular season, not make it 22 weeks, making it something like 19 or 20 or 21 weeks to make it a shorter season. That might alleviate the problem. I personally like the marathon of the 22 weeks.
Yeah.
I certainly know that, if for the teams that are fighting for it right now, the team that's going to be in 7th after this week is happy that there's at least one more week that they got that shot to get in. So there's a lot of different ways that we can play with it. So I'm just trying to find what that happy number is and what the right amount of innings are. And I think it's going to take 1 year of just trying it out because of this 3-batter rule, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm certainly on board with a lot of what you talked about there, as far as lowering the moves and I'm on board with it, because here's the thing. You're right in that 13 moves, it basically breaks down into 2 a day, where one day out of the week I have to make only 1 move, and then I'm good. Like I'm doing math some Thursdays, going, okay, I'm at 7 moves. 9, 11, 13. Beautiful, I'm good, right? If you lower it down to 12 or 11, it makes the math a little bit more interesting. It makes decision making just that much harder. I'm on board with that. I'm on board with lowering the number of moves.
Even if it's at 11.
Even if it's at 11, I'm down with that. Because we've had people this season max out their moves on Wednesday.
Not many.
No, but our Frank, a rookie manager, did it on a Wednesday.
Okay, so that's
early in the season.
So that's Frank, though. But we can't use that as a general comparison for
No.
the whole league. Most teams don't max out. There's a lot of times, even myself, where I'm like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I don't even make a move because I have a full roster. I have the relievers I want. So there's a good amount of days where you don't even make moves. So you're right. It is almost 2 a day, but it's really like what you're going to do to fill for Monday, Thursday, and parts of the weekend.
Exactly.
Most of the time.
Yeah. No, and for me, if it's going to get lowered to 11, that's where I'm going to start sacrificing is those lineup days where you're short. Fine, I'm just going to go with what I have. And
right, but exactly. But do you realize how this is going to be more of a sacrifice for you now versus you've been able to fill the lineup plus do your your streaming starters. So you're going to kind of have to pick.
Yeah. No, I'm going to have to play. I'm going to have to pay attention the week beforehand. Okay, how many guys am I going to have on Monday of next week in the middle of the week beforehand? Or how many guys? What?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And at some point, you're going to run out.
Yeah.
You're either going to run out because you did all those decisions to try to go for next week, or you were starting picking up starters. So, if anything, I'm hoping what it does is it makes you run out so that there would have been another 2 starting pitchers that you would have been able to stream, but now at least somebody else gets to have those starting pitchers.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. I love the competition. I love that. That might be a solid answer there. It certainly doesn't answer the rain short and complete games issue, but again, that's...
No, it does. No, it doesn't. And that's certainly something that we can definitely discuss further, because I can see it. From what I listened to you guys talk about on Monday, I really saw the point. And although on my end, I enjoyed that excitement. Mike said that's what triples are for. I do. I believe triples are very exciting for the hitting part.
Yeah.
But for the pitchers, this was the most exciting, you never know, pull the lever, get for each other's stat. But at the same time, I see where you guys are going with it. I can definitely see that it's not a skill stat that, and it almost never ever happens. So what's the point? It doesn't happen the way it used to in the early 2000s. I get it. So in that regard, I understand. I still enjoy the excitement of it. I never thought it was baloney if someone beat me by a complete game. The reason I lost the championship in 2012, the reason why many teams have not won a championship is because complete game shutouts. I always felt like that was just part of the game, but the game has changed, so I can certainly be a lot more open to removing complete games than to adding quality starts. But I hope we can at least see what we are both coming from with the argument.
Absolutely. I do want to ask you this question. How many complete games do you think have been thrown in the bigs this year?
Does this count range shortened ones?
Yes.
25?
34.
Okay.
Now, the question is that 9 that you're thinking of, are those the range shortened ones? Because remember, there were some games where 2 pitchers got complete games out of that because it only went 5 innings, or it only went 5 2/3 innings.
Sure.
I'm going to do my research this week. We can revisit this conversation again next week. And we
should definitely revisit it at the end of week when we find out who made the playoffs and what the standings are.
Mm-hmm.
If those complete games adjusted anything, because we both know Chris Levy leads in complete games
with 5.
He's in a playoff race right now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe those 5 complete games end up making the difference of him making the playoffs or not making the playoffs, or being in 4th place versus being in 6th place.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. It probably will. But to me, you and I have a different mentality in this, in that you say, do we really want to hang our hat on this if that's the reason? For me, I don't think that's it. I think it's okay.
Right.
For you, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Look, it doesn't leave a bad taste in my mouth if a pitcher goes out and throws his ass off and throws 9 complete innings and wins the game, or in the case of
games that bother you, then.
or in the case that I had this past week, 8 innings, 2 earned, and loses the game. If the guy goes out and throws 100 pitches or 110 or 120 pitches and throws every single inning, I have no problem with that. Where I have the problem is that something outside of the realm of baseball exists, and it is Mother Nature making this happen and giving a stat to a guy that, let's be honest, if a guy's throwing 82, 85 pitches in the 5th inning and the heavens open and they call the game, that sucks, because there's no chance that guy was going to go to the 9th.
That's a fair point, Joe. You made it when you initially made the point. It's absolutely a reasonable point that something that's completely out of your control, when we're such a smart group of fantasy minds going at it, mm-hmm. It's a shame if that's the reason.
I feel like in a league this deep with, and I've said it before, in a league this deep with this many smart minds and this much forethought going into every single move every single day, to have a jackpot category just seems silly.
Okay. It's a reasonable point, man. I didn't want that to be compared or connected to quality starts, because I don't think they're interchangeable in any way. I think they're 2 completely different conversations.
No, I don't think that they're interchangeable. But my thought is, if you're going to get rid of a silly stat, let's replace it with something that is much more skill-based and there's a lot more forethought into.
Right, sure, but there is backlash from adding a streaming stat.
Sure.
Potential backlash.
And I'm open to any other replacement that may exist out there. On-base percentage against is a good one, despite the fact that it's almost identical to WHIP.
Right. Exactly, like batting average against or on-base percentage against. They're both overlaps.
Yeah.
The only reason I think it might work for us is that it's a restrictive stat. Mm-hmm. It's a stat that says, you know what, not worth it. I'm not going to use my move on a starting pitcher.
Right.
And therefore will be more starting pitchers available. That's the idea, to make sure that someone doesn't have another reason to throw a starter, to pick up another starter. Mm-hmm. So that's where my head is at. And I know that if you have quality starts, it opens up Pandora's box. I truly believe that, man, because it's something that I've thought about for so long. You know me, man. this is more statistics than most fantasy leagues. It's usually the 5x5. I put a lot of thought into it, and quality starts was always something I was like, yeah, 6-3 earned. That's much better than a win. Yeah, it's just another stat. But at the same time, I just knew that all of a sudden everyone would be picking up starters. There'd all of a sudden never be starters on any particular day. I could see it happening. So that's where my foresight is. What adding a stat could potentially do to everybody else.
This has been a fantastic conversation, Benny. I would love to continue it next week. We've gone 45 minutes on this, so let's...
Yeah, as we should. It's a good discussion to have, and we should have more of them.
Absolutely.
So we know what everybody else's thought process is and where their feelings are, because everybody's opinion matters in this league. We want it to be perfect, and I'm trying to make it so, believe me.
And you know what? I appreciate it. I talk quite often with other, at this point with this podcast, I've reached out to a lot of other guys in the fantasy sports industry. I had my guest spot on a podcast when I was in New York in April. I have a friend that's in LA that does his own stuff and works for the NFL during football season. Like, I talk with these guys quite extensively, and they ask me, they go, what's your home league like? And I'm like, let me tell you about my home league. Like, this is a whole different animal. And they're like, 23 categories? Yeah, every week, head-to-head, 23 categories. They're like, well, what are they? Expecting to hear that we have a lot of overlap. And when I drop, especially the pitching stats on them, they're like, oh, there's not a whole lot of overlap there. I was like, the one that they ask is like, why relief appearances? And I'm like, look at how deep bullpens are now. We start 5 relief pitchers every day. You had to give the middle relievers some sort of value, or else all the closers are the only ones that matter. And they're like,
and there would be just a bunch of relievers in free agency all the time.
Yeah,
and
you'd have even less starters.
Everyone would use their bench on position players and starting pitchers.
Exactly.
And there would be no free agent hitters even, because there's no point to ever have a reliever.
Exactly. It's a testament to your foresight as a commissioner. I give you all the credit in the world for that. Yeah, I remember when that stat came in, and I was like, that's an interesting stat. Why not holds? And your response was absolutely spot on, 100% perfect, because you could either go after saves or go after holds. But if you have relief appearances, it actually increases the value of a closer because they get both. And I was like, that is incredibly smart. Guys.
Yeah, I'm actually proud of that one because I got a lot of heat from that. I got it from Dan Dravis. I got it from Jay Ferraro. I even got it from some people that currently are in this league that thought this is a silly stat.
You got it from me.
Require that much. Who cares if a guy comes into the game? That's true. It doesn't take skill from a pitcher to come into a baseball game.
No.
But he still has to pitch well. And the bottom line is that we did not want to devalue closers when I found that there's a huge issue that no one is picking up relief pitchers. No one cares about bullpen in our league. How do we fix this issue without devaluing closers? Holds, no one would even care about closers anymore because, like you said, just get the hold.
It's easier to get holds, yeah.
But now there actually is a skill in picking up relievers because, number one, you think about, okay, can this guy come into the game? Oh, he only had 5 pitches yesterday. Oh, he hasn't come in 3 days. Now this time he might come into the game. Well, who's he playing against? Oh, Washington. Do I really want him to be facing the middle of the Nationals batting order here? You know what? Maybe I should go stream another relief. I mean, there are so many ways to think about picking up a relief pitcher that there never was, so many years ago for us. So, yeah that's one that just worked. And every time I decided to add another stat, it's with a lot of caution because I realized that there might be, so much backlash as a result.
Have you given any thought, and this is, again, just a reaction to what you're saying, I have given no thought to it. Have you given any thought to doing saves plus holds?
Saves plus what?
Plus holds. So
I don't even, how would that work? A pitcher gets one or the other, basically?
It would count toward this, in this idea I have. You would replace saves with saves plus holds. So it's a combination stat where, let's say you go ahead and draft, I don't know, for the sake of argument, I'm going to use the Yankees bullpen here. You draft Aroldis Chapman, Zach Britton, Adam Ottavino, and Dellin Betances on a healthy year. You have those 4 guys, right? And
okay.
Domingo Germán goes 5 innings, and they're up 2-0, right? And then Ottavino comes in for the 6th and gets a hold. And Betances in for the 7th and gets a hold. And Britton comes in for the 8th and gets a hold. And then Chapman comes in and gets a save. You have 4 relief appearances, and you get 4 saves plus holds.
Oh, okay. So it's either okay, so a save and a hold are basically like the same thing, basically?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if I love it.
Okay.
I have to think about it, but
Sure.
I think I love what we have.
What it would end up doing is increasing the value of setup men.
Yeah.
It would increase the value of 8th inning guys and to a lesser extent 7th inning guys. But what
I
it would
feel like it devalues closers, though.
it does in a way, but it also devalues guys like Jalen Beeks, who is the bulk pitcher that comes in next. You know what I mean? It devalues a guy like Oliver Perez, who's a lefty specialist, right? He's not getting very many holds. He's just coming in to pitch to one guy.
That's a hold, though. I mean, if he leaves, Joe, all you need to get a hold, Joe, is to get 1 out and leave with your team still in the lead.
And it has to be in a save situation. Like, it would have to be a save situation in order to get a hold.
No, it does. I mean, I don't think so, man. Not necessarily. You can get it in the 4th inning, a hold. If let's say your team is leading 11-3, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the 2nd inning, your pitcher that's had this lead 11-3 starts to falter. You put another guy into the game. He can give up 5 earned runs, get 1 out, leave the game with your team now leading 11-8, and he gets a hold.
Agreed. The exact definition on Baseball Reference is granted to a relief pitcher who enters a game with his team in the lead in a save situation and hands that lead off to another reliever without the score having been tied in the interim.
A save situation, it means that there's enough outs in order to tie the game.
No, a save situation is 3 runs or fewer of a lead with the tying run either at the plate or on deck.
I understand what you're saying, but what I'm telling you is that a pitcher can get a hold in like the 3rd inning when they have like a big lead.
It's something to look into. In any event, we've gone off on a far too left tangent here. Guys, we'll be back in a minute. I'm going to bring on a guest that has not been on the show yet this year, and we will dive into the final 4 matchups of the week. So bear with us. We'll be right back.